Cool. So, yeah, we have a biannual grants program, as I'm sure you all know. So every spring and fall, we will be offering grants to member business associations. So we just released our fall round on August 6th. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of talk about what's new. We've been kind of slowly adapting this program, not only for COVID, but for the changing needs of business districts and small businesses in Portland. So if you haven't applied in a while, it's going to look really different. We've hopefully simplified things to make it easier and more accessible for applicants. And we're always looking for ways to make it easier. So if you do have any feedback, feel free to share that. So the three different grant types that we have available in our fall and winter round are events and marketing, district enhancement, holiday staffing. So what's new here is during COVID, we kind of took away the events and marketing grants just because those weren't really readily available. People couldn't really do any large scale events during the pandemic restrictions. So we're really focusing on district enhancement and staffing grants just to kind of help districts not only maintain their staff who manage a lot of these programs, but also do some other stuff in districts. The district enhancement grants were more for the kind of infrastructure build out. A lot of projects focused on building out those outdoor spaces that businesses kind of had to scramble to develop to be able to have customers outdoors during the restrictions. So events and marketing is the first type available, and you're going to choose one of these three, and that's a $3,000 maximum grant. And these are typically various ways to promote your business district, so passport promotion, website, social media, or a holiday event. District enhancement, those are a little bit longer term projects. They cost a little bit more money because it is physical infrastructure most of the time. So those are a $5,000 maximum ask. And then holiday staffing, that's going to remain at $3,000. So this really isn't to support the full pay for your staffer. Really, it's just to kind of help you pay their salary during that critical holiday period. We've also expanded this to include contractors and event coordinators if you're hiring someone specifically to do an event during the holidays. So we'll get to that in a bit. But the first thing I want to talk about is the events and marketing grants. So these are for events and marketing November through February 2022. So really focusing on holiday, Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, anything that kind of happens in that 4-month period. February is also available if you want to do something around Valentine's Day. And January, sometimes districts want to do a shoulder kind of promotion around just maybe coupling with the Portland Light Festival, which typically happens in late January, early February. So yeah, primary use for these are holiday events. So anything that you're doing in your district, public event, community focused, to really help draw visitors to your district. Holidays are a critical time, especially for retailers. And a lot of folks, have taken to Amazon as a more convenient and affordable way to do their holiday shopping. So this is just kind of brainstorming ways you can incentivize people to come in and get in the holiday spirit in your district, also support the businesses in your district during this time. It doesn't have to be an actual public event, though. It could be a marketing campaign. So if you're taking out ads in any of the local publications, if you're doing a social media campaign with Instagram ads and that sort of thing, if you want to do some enhancements to your website to kind of help promote businesses through there, you can do so with a grant, an events marketing grant. And also mailers. So a lot of the districts last year were doing every door direct mail, which is if you pick a specific zip code, you can have marketing material delivered to residents in your district. during a specific period of time. And passport promotions, those are always popular. Go around to businesses, purchase something, collect stamps, turn in your passport for a chance to win prizes. It's a pretty standard promotion to do around the holidays. And sometimes districts will do a combination of multiple types of things that are listed here. So we'll talk a little bit about that right now. The first thing I wanted to kind of highlight for you all was an event that Kenton applied for a grant to do. They've been doing this over the past couple of years in various forms, called Deck the Paul. And really, they have a great plaza kind of in the heart of their district with giant Paul Bunyan statue. I'm sure you've all seen that. So that's a great meeting place, a community gathering place for their district. They wanted to kind of dress that up a little bit. So I think the original plan was to put a giant wreath around Paul Bunyan's neck. That proved to be a little too cost prohibitive, so they ended up just putting the wreath at Paul Bunyan's feet there. But a great way to dress up the plaza, give people a reason to get out and walk the district, especially during those winter months where things are kind of dark and dreary. They were able to light up the plaza and also light up their main street along North Denver Avenue. They also got Santa to come and take photos. They did some cookie decorating and other family-friendly activities sponsored by various businesses around. And it actually got them some media attention, as you see down there in the lower left-hand corner. Media came out, some interviews with some of the board members talking about what they're doing, why it's a great time to come to Kenton. And it was a really successful event in getting people out and about. So they coupled this event, which was a one-night event, with an ongoing 6-week passport promotion called the Kenton Holiday Shopping Passport. So this was something, a typical passport promotion where businesses would hand out these passports, people would visit the participating businesses and, get a stamp either for just visiting or for purchasing something. And then the pages in the passport were actually perforated. So every week, if you collected enough stamps, you could tear out that page, submit it at any of the participating businesses, and enter in for a chance to win prizes from the businesses in the district. So that was a great way to kind of get people shopping, starting early on in the season with Black Friday and carrying that all the way through even post holidays into January as people continue to do shopping and to get people out during those times. So that was a great kind of 1-2 punch, a public event, and then an ongoing passport promotion that they used Venture Portland funding to pay for. Another example of a events and marketing grant would be the Division Clinton Bright Lights Warm Hearts campaign. So they focused on 2 specific things here: lighting their street, not only the street trees, but also encouraging businesses to light up their storefronts and windows and do some window displays, just to, again, make it more inviting during those dark holiday winter evenings. And they also did a kind of charitable contribution component where businesses would partner with a charity or nonprofit of their choice. And then as people were shopping at those businesses, they would donate a portion of their sales to that nonprofit. So a way for people to kind of give back, but also do their holiday shopping at the same time. And that was done, again, through Black Friday weekend all the way through the end of December. So really trying to stretch that out, incentivize people over a longer period of time. And then finally, Beaumont's version of their holiday event, taking a lot of the similar cues, but kind of twisting it a little bit, make it their own unique event, was Fremont Holiday Fest. So Fremont Holiday Fest, typically, the big thing is photos with Santa. So Santa arrives on a fire truck and people sign up to get their photo with Santa. Last year was a little bit more difficult to do that because of the COVID restrictions. Couldn't have Santa meeting with hundreds of kids in person. So they actually got really creative, and you can see in the bottom right, they rigged up a Santa window where the kids could still see Santa and Mrs. Claus, but it was just a way to kind of keep everybody safe. So that was kind of cool. They also had 2 large 17-foot holiday trees donated by a local business that they had lit up in various public spaces along their street. They had some live music, again, encouraging businesses to do window decorating. I think one year they did a window decorating contest where businesses would decorate their windows and then people would vote on what their favorites were. So I think that's a really way to incentivize businesses to take the extra step to decorate their windows. And again, there's a charitable component, always makes people feel good around the holidays. They did a canned food drive with the Oregon Food Bank. So things to keep in mind as you're planning your holiday event. A lot of different components you can include depending on what specifically your businesses are interested in and what your customers are interested in. Okay, so let's move on to district enhancement grants. So district enhancement grants are typically for infrastructure projects. So this could be a lot of different things depending on the time of year. Again, you're going to want to focus on getting these implemented during the winter season. So that's November through February. So some stuff isn't as easy as others, but specifically, you're going to want to look at doing holiday lighting. So the Williams District last year applied for a grant to do holiday lighting. It's actually really expensive. You can hire someone to do it, but the labor involved is quite expensive. There's also insurance required and permitting. So definitely something you're going to want to get an early jump on. Start thinking about this now if you want to light up your street. Also, finding power is definitely something that you're going to need to work out the logistics of where that's going to come from if you want to do some holiday lighting. But it's definitely a great idea. Light up your street, make it more inviting during the nighttime. We're also allowing grants for outdoor seating winterization. So again, a lot of businesses had to kind of scramble to create these outdoor spaces for serving their customers last year. This was a way for them to winterize that. So purchasing tents and heaters and whatever other furniture might be needed to make things more comfortable. PBOT actually just announced yesterday that they will be renewing their healthy business permit through June 2022. So these spaces are going to stay, if the business chooses, are going to stay active during the winter season. So if your district has multiple businesses looking to make enhancements to these spaces, this would be a great grant for that. It does have to be for multiple businesses though, because grants are for the business district as a whole. Multiple businesses are going to have to benefit. One business, just one business cannot just benefit from a grant. Public art, also super popular. More difficult to do during the rainy season, but some districts have done it. So this could be, murals, street painting, that sort of thing. Accessibility focuses more on benches, bike racks, crosswalks, ways for people to easily and safely access the businesses in the district. And then livability focuses more on trash cans, some organized cleanups, anything to kind of enhance the livability of the district. So let's look at a couple of projects that we funded under the district enhancement category recently. So last year, Historic Park Rose did a restaurant incubator program where they worked with 5 BIPOC-owned businesses to create expanded and outdoor dining areas. So the photo there at the top, El Sombrero, they did not have an outdoor space. So Historic Park Rose applied for a grant to work with them to purchase some greenery and some furniture and clean up that area outside of their restaurant. They also worked with a couple of businesses to expand what they were doing inside their restaurants. So the district did not have a coffee shop. So they worked with, I think called Fork and Spoon restaurant to create a kind of community coffee shop space within their restaurant space. They also used the funds to create promotional videos for 10 of their district businesses. They hired a videographer to go out and interview businesses about why they like being in Park Rose and, how they're passionate about their businesses, what makes their business unique, and posted those up on their YouTube channel and on social media. And then finally, the last piece of this grant was a monthly pop-up market for BIPOC vendors. So they had this empty parking lot space, and they wanted to help businesses that maybe didn't have a physical storefront space. So they doing a monthly pop-up market with those funds to give those businesses an opportunity to sell their wares. Other projects under district enhancement include street painting. So the photo there on the left is a project currently in progress in the Central East Side. They're doing a street painting outside of one of their member businesses. The middle photo is from a series of ongoing cleanups that 82nd Avenue is doing in partnership with Solve. So 82nd Avenue, huge street. They decided they wanted to tackle it by putting specific nodes throughout the district and hosting cleanups there on a monthly basis. So those are going great. I think they're going to continue into the fall. And then the photo in the top right is from Foster Road. This past summer, they did a district beautification program where they bought a bunch of these big, I guess it's like a farm tub that the livestock drink out of, place them at strategic points along Foster Road. Foster Road, they recently planted a lot of street trees, but still not a ton of greenery there. They're still working on sprucing up the streetscape. So this is a great way for a business district to kind of add some additional greenery. So they got these tubs, they filled them with soil. They got some volunteers to come and help plant some drought-tolerant plants to kind of keep things green, especially during the summertime. And then the last category available, holiday staffing. So this typically, in the past couple of grant cycles has only been for ongoing staff, and you can still apply for this to kind of help fund the payroll for your ongoing staff. But we've also expanded it to include event coordinators, independent contractors, people that might not be with your organization all year, but they're still helping to implement holiday programming you're doing. So that's also an option as well. And again, those are for the same period of time, November through February, $3,000 grants. Okay, let's talk about some of the requirements for these grants. We've tried to really make it as flexible as possible here, make the lift as light as possible for applicants. So in the past, we were doing a 1-to-1 match for our grants. So if you applied for a grant for $3,000, you would have to match it with $3,000 cash or in kind. So with a total of a $6,000 project minimum. In recent years, though, we've decided that that might be a little too much to ask, especially during COVID. A lot of district revenues are down. So this is now a 0.5-to-1 match, cash or in kind. So a $3,000 grant would just have to be matched with $1,500, and that could be cash expenses or it could be in-kind contributions. This will also include volunteer time now, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a professional donating their time, like a graphic designer or other professional. It could be just any volunteers that are helping to make the programming happen. You also must have general liability insurance, which I'm sure all of your districts do. You have to be completed within that required timeline. So really trying to just focus on holiday projects here. Also because our next grant cycle will start up again in February of 2022. So you want to make sure you can complete this project before you can apply for another grant in the spring. You also must recognize Venture Portland. So I can provide you with our logo to go on any promotional materials. You can verbally recognize us on social media with a shout out, but we must be recognized as a sponsor to your program or project, whatever it is. And you also must be a current Venture Portland member, or your district must be a current Venture Portland member. So Our member year runs on a calendar year. So if you signed up anytime in the past year, you are currently a Venture Portland member through December. If you haven't, it's not too late. You would just have to your membership dues either on our website or via check. So if you're unsure about that, just let me know and I can let you know what your district status is. So let's talk a little bit about the grant writing process. So a lot of you are kind of new to this the first time. Mostly it's volunteers writing these grant applications. So we're trying to make this as simple as possible because business associations typically don't have development professionals. So we want to make it so anybody, even those without any grant writing experience, can fill out the application. So we've really streamlined it. It's 6 questions, and I am available to kind of help with the grant writing and project planning. So please reach out to me. But beyond that, as you're thinking about writing your application, you want to assume that the people scoring your application know nothing about your district. So the people that are scoring your application are actually our grants committee, which are made up of people from other business associations, people from partner organizations like RAC, and a few others are volunteers on this committee. And they're the ones who will be reading your grant application and score each application based on a number of criteria. You want to make sure that you're really being as clear as possible and giving some background information and facts about your district to provide context, because they might not be familiar with your district. There's 50 business districts throughout the city, and no one's really an expert on all of them, but you might be an expert on your own district. So making sure you're providing information about why this project is important, why it makes sense in your district, and what resources your district has available to make it happen. You want to build the confidence of the grants committee and make them think that they are making a good investment by funding your project. You want to answer each question succinctly and completely. So 6 questions, don't skip any of them. Some of the questions have multiple parts. So you want to make sure that you are answering each part of the question and being as detailed as possible. Don't leave anything up to a guess. So you don't want the grants committee having questions to ask because they're not going to get that opportunity. They are going to make their judgment about your application solely based on the information that you're providing. So answer the questions. You can also include some resource material they can review. So if there's any examples of the project, any quotes that you've gotten, anything like that that can help to clarify what you're trying to do. It could be drawings, it could be photos, anything to make it clearer. You might need to collaborate with other board members to get all the information needed in the application. The application is going to ask for information about your project, but also about your district, specifically about the demographics of your district. Here at Venture Portland, we've really wanted to focus on funding projects that enhance the accessibility of your district for BIPOC-owned businesses and the BIPOC communities. So anything that you can provide on how the project does that is going to really help to enhance your application. So you might need to meet with people who have a history in your district, that have a knowledge of certain information about your district that you might know you might not know if you're new to the board. There's also a budget template that's needed to be filled out. So you might need to meet with your treasurer, figure out, does this budget fit in with our larger organizational budget? Okay. Also, you want to give yourself some time to get quotes for potential expenses if this is a new project. So again, as you're thinking about filling out the budget, you might not know how much things are going to cost. You can do a rough estimate, but it's really helpful to reach out to potential vendors and contractors to see if they can give you an idea of how much it would cost to do the project. That way you know if it's feasible how much money you'll have to apply for, how much money you'll have to match, and have a plan to match those funds. You'll also want to think about contacting the appropriate city bureaus to ensure that your project is possible. So anything that's going on the street or sidewalk, anything that's going to require permission from the city, reach out to them. First, find out if you're allowed to do it, and then learn about any required permits. That's going to help you to figure out the permit costs and the timeline that goes along with those. The permit office sometimes does take a while to approve those. So keep that in mind as you're doing your project planning. And the most important tip I could give you when you're writing your grant application is don't wait until the last minute. So many folks think that they can just write the application the night before or the morning of, and we get submissions that are incomplete or they're missing critical information. And the only way you're going to be able to know if your application is complete is if you get it in before the deadline. So I'm available to review any drafts or final drafts of your application up until the day of the deadline. And then on the day of the deadline, I cannot review them. We just have too many coming in at the same time. So you want to get those looked over before the deadline. So start the process now. Start talking to your boards now about what types of projects you want to apply for. Assign who's going to be responsible for what, and start putting together, a rough application right now. Fill in the gaps as you need be. Send it over to me to look at, to give you some feedback. That's definitely something you're not going to want to wait to do. So once the application goes in and you get funded, you do the project, you have to submit a grant evaluation. So these are required for all awardees, and it's really just a way for you to kind of help us understand, was the project successful? What did you spend the money on? And that's something that we use in our reporting to the city. These grant funds are public dollars. So in order to be good stewards of them, we need to be able to provide proof to the city that they're being used responsibly and effectively in the district. So you want to assign someone responsible for completing the grant evaluation, and that needs to be done within 15 days of project completion. So really stressing the importance of this. We don't want districts just completing the project and then forgetting about the evaluation portion. We've seen this a lot in the past, where it's taken months, sometimes years, to get the evaluations from districts. If the evaluation is not received within 15 days of project completion, your district will not be eligible for future funding. So definitely build this into your whole process. You're going to want to have tracking methods to track quantifiable outcomes before starting the project. So how are you going to know if the project was successful? Are you, tracking the number of people that participated? Are you tracking the amount of revenue that was generated? Make sure you have something in mind for a way that you can show us that this money was used for something effective and beneficial to the businesses in your district. Most importantly, you want to collect and submit receipts and invoices for all cash and in-kind expenses. So we need proof that you spent the entire grant and that you matched the grant. So make sure that you're getting receipts and invoices from all your contractors, any equipment that is purchased. Save those because you're going to need to turn those in when the project is completed. And as I said, you want to make sure you spend your entire grant. So the grants need to be spent in their entirety, or the remainder needs to be given back to Venture Portland. We don't want that. We want you to spend the money, because if we have grant dollars left over at the end of the year, the city thinks that we don't need them. And the truth is we need as many grant dollars as we can get. So spend the grant if you're going to apply for the grant. If you need some suggestions for ways to spend, if you kind of go under budget, which is always a nice surprise, doesn't happen often, we can kind of help you brainstorm ways to spend the remainder. Let's take a look at the timeline. So what you can expect for the fall winter round. As I said, the applications were released on August 6th. So just under 2 weeks ago, you should have gotten an email from me. They went up live on our website. And from that point on, up until September 10th, I'm available to help with any project planning or grant writing assistance. And then starting on the 13th of September, that's that week of the deadline. And at that point, you're going to want to have your application in its final form. And I'll be doing final draft review during that week. So from the 13th to the 16th, feel free to send over your final draft to me before submitting the final, and I'll let you know if it's incomplete or missing anything. And then finally, applications are due no later than the 17th of September. So I highly encourage you to submit them before the 17th, but 17th of September at 12 p.m. noon. So we cannot accept late applications. So plan on submitting that to me electronically via email before that time. You will have to get signatures from your president and treasurer. So keep that in mind. That's another reason you want to get things in early. Sometimes it takes a while to get signatures. Sometimes people are away on vacation. So talk to your president and treasurer now, just so you can secure time to get those signatures from them. At that point, I'll collect all the applications. I'll send them over to our grants committee, and the grants committee will have about 10 days to review them all and read them and score them. The grants committee will then meet in late September, discuss all the applications, make their decision about which applications they want to fund, and then we will let all applicants know whether they were funded or not by October 1st. So expect to hear back from us at that point. If you don't hear back from us before then, don't be worried. That just means that the grants committee is still figuring out which projects that they want to fund. We are on a very restricted budget, so a lot of the times we aren't able to fund every project. Sometimes projects are partially funded. So just keep that in mind. It is a competitive process. You want to make sure that you spend time on creating a compelling application. As I said, there is support available. You can download the grant guidelines and application at ventureportland.org/grants. And you can also email me with questions about your project and application. My email is jacob@ventureportland.org. So I am available to help with anything you might need. All right, so let's take a quick look at the application. So here's what it looks like. The first page is just kind of the guidelines, the different types of grants available, and then the requirements for those grants that we went over, specifically the match, and then the actual application itself. So 6 questions of narrative questions, specifically around a description of your project, your goals, a timeline, a question about how this project focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion and access. There's a question number 5 about the budget. And number 6, if you weren't, if you do not receive the grant, what would the project look like? So just hypothetically speaking. So number 5 refers to this budget template, and we've slimmed this down a bit too, because this was super confusing for folks in the past. But really, it's going to be asking about, how are you spending the funds? So what are your expenses? How do those break down? But how are you also matching? So what other revenue are you bringing in to pay for the additional expenses of the project? These grants are meant to be partial funding for projects, but districts are expected to contribute their own in-kind or cash to the project as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop talking and open up the floor for questions. So I know for some of you, you've been through this process before. Some of you are new to the process. Who has questions? Who's wondering about the application? Who has an idea for a project that they're unsure of, whether or not it kind of fits into any of these categories? What are you all thinking? Has anybody talked to their boards yet about what they're going to apply for in the fall? Yeah, Deborah.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a question. I think I know quite a few people in the room, but I will say I work with the Williams District. And you were talking about how we have received the grant before for lighting. Is there anything that precludes us from going after a grant for kind of the same thing? Is there anything like that says you can only do, you know, that project 1 year and not get it again for the next year? Or is there, you know, should we be thinking about a different project to kind of go after versus the lighting?
Yeah, I think, you know, as long as you can show the committee that the project was successful in its, you know, first iteration, or, you know, you had learned something from that first iteration that you're going to do differently this time around, and you can, yeah, absolutely apply for that project. Just, I think you'll want to include information in your application that helps them understand that it was successful, or if it wasn't successful, here's what we're doing to make it successful this year.
Yeah, I think it was, you know, really successful in that the district really loved it, and we've been getting, you know, inquiries about, you know, we're gonna be lighting the trees up again and stuff like that. So I know that's definitely one thing that the board has mentioned, maybe seeking some funds for. So great.
That's great. Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, first time around is kind of a learning experience. So a lot of the times projects need to be refined year over year to really get them being effective and successful. So yeah, I think if you had an idea for something that you had tried that didn't work, if you're going to do something differently this year, that's great. If it worked, but you're just expanding on it, that's also even better. I think that totally qualifies. Any other questions about grants? Yeah, Joe.
Hey, thank you, Jacob. Hi, Joe Schaefer with the Hillsdale Business and Professional Association. So we've been kind of off the grid for a couple of years, and now I've kind of gotten back into Venture Portland's good graces this year. So I appreciate that. Question regarding the matching funds. As a newbie, I'm new on the board, and then obviously we're kind of back into the good graces again. What is that angle or that message that we need to kind of parallel with not only the grant request, but also that matching funds to our community? What is the tactic others folks have used that I can maybe steal as to how we say, hey, this is what we want, this is what we need? How early do we start that process, and kind of what's a simple step to get me in that direction?
Yeah, so the matching funds are really all focused on not only making sure that the business district has buy-in on the project. You know, if you are contributing your own funds, I think you're going to have more of a kind of drive to make it successful. But it's also for the city, since these are public funds, they want to see that we're generating additional revenue with these projects. So it's kind of leveraging those public dollars for additional projects. But I think you know, mainly the process should really start, you know, before the applications are even, you know, out. So a lot of these projects, you know, will take 3 or 4 months to plan. And, you know, districts, you know, pre-pandemic would generate a lot of the funds through, you know, it depends on the project. You know, some sell ads, some sell sponsorships, some use their membership revenue to pay the other expenses, and then some are just in-kind contributions. So if you have professionals in your district who are members that want to donate their time, that's another way to do it. So, you know, you can give them recognition as a sponsor in whatever event you're doing. Let's say, you know, you have someone who, you know, can hang holiday lights in your district, and they're willing to, you know, give you a discount on that labor. You can totally utilize their services, give them a portion of the grant, give them kind of a shout out as a sponsor for giving you that that discount, and then the discount itself would be part of the matching funds that would go into the total project expenses.
Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Jill's iPad.
Hello, Jill with Multnomah Village.
Hey,
So same question as Joe asked, only specifically addressing question number 4. We're in a pale part of town. How, what are you looking for? What would be good ways to handle that?
yeah, so I think it depends on the project that you're doing. You know, obviously, if the demographics of your district skew towards you know, primarily white, that's okay. You don't have to be a diverse district to get funded. I think it's just more along the lines of thinking of, you know, what are you doing specifically to reach out to BIPOC communities or BIPOC businesses to get them involved. So, you know, let's say, you know, you're doing a street fair, and you know, you're having vendors at the street fair. Are you partnering with any specific organizations to help you get BIPOC vendors signed up? Are you giving a discount to BIPOC vendors to incentivize them to sign up? So that's one way to kind of get the business aspect involved. Another way to kind of get your outreach increased to the BIPOC community would be, again, partnerships. So are you working with, you know, Apano to advertise the event? Are you working with, you know, ERCO or any specific organizations that serve those communities to kind of help do some outreach to get them to know about your event? So maybe you're doing some English or a language translation services, offering your event outreach materials in multiple languages. That's another way to do it. Just any way that you can kind of help expand beyond your typical audience. So if your typical audience is of a certain demographic, what are you doing to kind of help to diversify your audience? Does that help at all?
Sorry, thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, great. Question from Art at Lentz. If we were to pursue street lights, how long would they be allowed to stay up? Is it possible to have interchangeable ones with colors to match the holiday? So that's a great question. I know with the Williams District, they actually kept theirs up after the holidays, so into January and February. It really just depends on you know, where they're going to go. Are they going to go on storefronts? Are they going to go on street trees? Are they going to go on something that's owned by the city? Or are they going to go on something privately owned? If it's privately owned, there's really no restrictions around that. If it's something that's owned by the city, they will probably only grant you a permit for a specific period of time. That's something you'll want to discuss with them. But I would plan on, yeah, if you are going to go through the expense of putting up lights, extend that into the rest of the winter season. You know, January and February, those are the shoulder seasons. It's dark, it's rainy. We have the Portland Light Festival, so it's a great tie-in to that. So work with the city, if that's kind of the direction you're going, to keep those up. I would say, you know, as long as you can, just to maximize kind of the return on your investment. And I think it's the same deal, you know, I don't think there's specific restrictions around what type of lights you can have. So as far as color, so yeah, if you're thinking, you know, you have orange lights around Halloween, and then, you know, red and green lights or white lights, or, you know, around Christmas time. I think you could totally do that, or red lights around Valentine's Day. Yeah, really the only limit is what your imagination is, and, you know, where you're planning on putting them. If it's public property, you're going to need to get the city's approval on that. But have a plan first and go to them with, and they'll tell you whether or not it's something that's possible.
And I would just say with that, about the idea of changing the color of the lights, that feels much more possible store owner to store owner with their own storefronts versus hiring a company to hang lights for you. They're going to charge you double, right? They're going to take the lights down and then put up a different color of light. And it is really expensive. So it's unlikely that you'd have the money to do that you'd want to spend every dollar you have to have them come out twice to change out the lights. So Art, if that were something that felt really important, I would then suggest tweaking the grant to be about storefront owners and buying them strings of lights. So maybe you'd want white for Hanukkah, and then maybe you'd want blue for the new year, and then red or pink for Valentine's, right? You could spend the money on purchasing lights for those store owners. Anyway, just my 2 cents.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And feasibility wise, I appreciate that.
Yeah, a lot of the times lighting the storefront is going to be the easiest thing to do just because you'll have access to power. You'll be able to work with the business owner, and you won't be kind of confined to the restrictions of the city. I think access to power is the biggest one. That's not always easy in certain districts. Yeah, Deborah.
Sure. And I'll just add in, there are some real guidelines around putting lights on trees and how you have to do it. And there are permits from the city for, putting lights onto the trees that aren't, a storefront kind of thing. And there are fees based on like how many, it's kind of based on how many trees you're lighting, as to the fee of, what you're paying for the permits. So it could be, and that's one of the things that Williams is talking about this year. Do we go back the route with putting them on the trees and permitting, or do we go the route where we're purchasing lights for the businesses' storefronts? So that's kind of where we're going back and forth a little bit.
And I would say one of those things with the lighting piece is because you want it to have impact, right? So when somebody's walking or driving on your street, if it's only every other or every third business, there's no impact, right? So you want to make sure if you decide to do it with store owners, you can get many of them in a row to light together, right? And the same if you're going to go with the city and talk to them about lighting trees. You don't want it to be willy-nilly, right? You want it to be like a row of lights that trees are lighted. So, there are things to, visualize ahead of time. And then I'd suggest working backwards to get to the dream goal.
Yeah, definitely want to have that critical mass, so definitely reach out to businesses before applying to see if they would be willing and interested in participating, because you don't want to kind of apply for the funds and then if you have no interest, only being able to light a handful of trees or storefronts, it's really not going to have the impact that you're looking for. And if businesses aren't interested in doing lights, maybe there's something else that they would be more interested in that you could kind of focus on instead. Okay, any other questions? And, as I said, I am available. So as you speak to your boards about what you're thinking of. Oh yeah, Jill.
Sorry, one more. How would you suggest handling if we had sort of a 2-part grant request, like 2 projects that weren't necessarily totally related? Is that doable? If so, how would you suggest it? And if it's not doable, let me know.
Yeah, I think that's totally doable. We kind of saw that with the Historic Park Roads project, where initially they had applied to do just the enhancements to their outdoor patios and spaces for their businesses, but that actually ended up being promotional videos and the outdoor market as well. So I think as long as there's still a benefit to the business and you can still complete it within the same timeline, you can totally do different projects within one application. you know, the thing that ties it all together is it's benefiting businesses during a specific period of time. So as long as it fits into that category, yeah, go ahead and get creative if your budget allows it.
Sorry, thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, well, we are almost at time, so if there's nothing else, I'm going to let you all go early. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me to discuss potential projects. I can look at drafts. I'm happy to kind of talk about what other districts have done, or connect you with other districts that have, if they've done something that you're interested in, I can connect you with them, and they can talk about their experience, what they learned, and potential pitfalls in that. So that's always an option as well. But thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're all busy, and good luck with your grants. Don't wait to the last minute. And I look forward to seeing what kind of projects you come up with. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jacob.